This is Nikki Schauder. Hi, this is Nikki Schauder, and Dave and I are in charge of the composting at the upcoming Middle Eastern Food Festival on Labor Day. Middle Eastern Food Festival is going to be held at Holy Transfiguration in McLean, and I'm going to explain how to compost correctly. This little workshop is helpful for anybody who's attending the festival or attending service at Holy Transfiguration for that weekend, just so that you know how to dispose of your disposables properly. So, how to compost correctly, why we do it, and how to do it right. This composting initiative at the food festival is thanks to Jen Kanakry, who's our festival director this year, and a green grant from the Keep Virginia Beautiful Foundation. So, what is the purpose of our food festival that we welcome any of our guests to, and that we are all trying to promote and support with our volunteer work? Thank you so much for watching this and for being a volunteer and doing the humblest of services by taking care of the trash on that day. So it's an opportunity for sharing and dialogue and building bridges of understanding with our larger community. And in it, we share our faith, our food for sure, and our culture. And so we introduce people to our faith, that we are the faith descendants of Jesus Christ. These are all plagiarized from the words of the pastors who have been giving the videos about the food festival and inviting people to the food festival for years. We also exchange in a beautiful way food, and through that exchange a meal, which brings together people, we share our culture and our dances and you can see the iconography of the church. But most of all, I think that the faith is why we would love to bring people to the church, is just to introduce them to Jesus Christ and what people who follow him do. How do they live? So why do we compost at the food festival? First, it is a reflection of our faith. We often sing, "From death comes life," in our church, and composting is an opportunity to return what is dead and wasted to the earth so that it may bring forth life. It's also an example or an opportunity for good stewardship. And I love how the concept that we already have everything that we need on this earth, and that in an ordered way we can care for it, for the environment in which we live in. And this includes making good use of the things we are given and making them last, and not wasting. If they can be reused, repurposing them. And the ultimate repurposing is composting. Recycling can only get you so far, but composting creates new life from death. Also, this service, thank you again for being a volunteer, is again, like I said, an act of humility, because it's the humblest of actions or services. It's not the the highlight, making the food. It's the throwing away of things that are already discarded. And so this hidden but beautiful task is very important. And it's also recognizing the abundance that we have here in America and wherever we are, like bringing this Middle Eastern flair to McLean, Virginia, and not taking for granted the limited nature of our world, and acknowledging natural laws, checks, and balances. I always like to say that nature is in it. We see the fingerprint of God in nature. And what better way to reflect this than through mimicking these same actions, these natural actions, and bringing them to order and following the natural law. And then another thing that composting does is that we co-create with God, not just consume his gifts. Composting allows us to be producers, not just consumers. Oh, and I can edit that right away. I'm not even in presentation mode here. So let me just change my presentation mode here to present. I guess I can't present here. All right, so Another way to look at composting is to look at what it's not. And so I like to have this image in mind also, is the action that I'm doing a linear action, which is very extractive. This is a model from um, called the story, a project called The Story of Stuff. You can Google it or research it. And it's basically the way that most things, objects that we consume or we purchase are created, where we extract from the earth, use up fossil fuels in its production, we distribute them, we purchase them from big box marts, and then we consume them, and they stay in our homes for an average of 6 months before we discard them into the landfill. And usually these extractive linear systems are man-made and move in one direction from extraction to disposal. Unlike the way that God designed nature, right? So in this model of nature, of the natural world, we have a small input such as a seed that blossoms into a fruit that we consume, and that waste that we discard from it, sometimes it'll blossom into a tree. And instead of being extractive, we are mirroring the way that God does it in the world. When we compost, we want to bring that waste back to the earth in that natural cycle of growth and development and death and rebirth. And that's what composting does. So we are going to try our best. We can't go 100% composting, but I just want to explain the different ways to dispose at the food festivals, and if you so choose in your life, can be adopted as well. Like we have trash, and we know what by default, normally we would put things in trash. So things that definitely have to go to the trash that we know that we are using at the food festival are those white fluted baking cups that each sweet sits in. It's not compostable. The tins, anything like the aluminum foil with the clear lids, should be taken home. Those containers from the sweets section, they are unfortunately disposable into the trash. And then we're called to recycle the soda cans, plastic bottles of water, plastic bottles of lemonade, and the dates gelab. Um, Glass beer bottles likely will need to fully separate. So we need to separate the glass from the plastic and the soda cans in the recycle bins. And then composting. So everything that comes out of the kitchen to the patron will be compostable. And these are Jen's words. So one thing that she does want to make sure that we do is that we do not contaminate the compost, and that we err on the side of not composting. So what are the compostable items? Utensils, they should be bamboo, I believe. Clamshell containers, tubs for sides and sauces, napkins, cups, cold cups and lids, fry containers, even if they have the oil in them, even if they have a little bit of food, that's what the composting company wants, more than the actual items. The sandwich wraps, the shopping bags. The shopping bags are compostable. Future Acres, which is the company that's doing the composting for us, they really want the food scraps. So everything that is food goes into the compost bin with the sauces. The only thing they ask is not to add the liquid. So if you have your soda, as much as soda is quote unquote food, we are not putting the soda juice or liquid into the composting bin. So throw that out first into the sink, and then put them into the soda can into the recycle bin, or the coffee cup into the compost bin. So as much as possible, no liquids in any of the receptacles, trash, recycling, or composting bins. And then also to save space, because we have a limited amount of compost bins, stack the paper products before adding them to the compost bin, like this, right? Now, we are getting 24 bins, 32 gallons each, and we would need to report the results to the green grant to qualify for this grant. So please take this composting portion seriously and try to stack and compact these items as much as you can. There are many different composting methods out there. And I'm going to talk about them here below. We do indoor composting, so some are like mills that are electric and they compost. I don't do this personally. I think it's a waste of electricity. But we do hot and cold composting outside, where we have bins that we can turn, or we can do static composting, that we just have the compost sitting in a pile, and after a few months, we turn them. The more you turn them, the faster it'll decompose. And if you don't turn them, they'll eventually decompose anyway, like this. We do Bokashi composting, which is a type of fermentation where the bacteria, the same lactobacillus bacteria that ferments kimchi, also ferments our compost. So it's sort of a pre-digested compost that will eventually be incorporated into the soil, where it's composted further by the natural microbes that are occurring in the soil. And then there's vermicomposting, which is one of the fastest ways to compost, that are natural, that are not like you heat it up. I would say hot composting and vermicomposting are one of the fastest. And the reason that it's the fastest is because the worms that are used can eat so much in a day, and it depends on the worm that you use. So I use a red wriggler Eisenia fetida worm, and it produces this very dark, rich compost. Future Acres uses the black soldier fly larva, which we'll talk about in a second, and they are also known as mealworms in their worm state. They're the favorite food of our chickens, and they love to eat. So they live as a fly. The mealworms eventually become a fly. It is really harmless but big-looking fly called a black soldier fly, and it flies around for about 2 weeks. The only thing it does in that flying state is it lays its eggs, but it does not eat in those 2 weeks and eventually dies. It does eat, however, in that larval stage, and it's in this phase that we are using it to digest our food waste, our food scraps. And that's why the food is the most important part of this composting process. So let's recap what we've learned. We talked about how composting can deepen our faith. Do not contaminate the compost. We want to err on the side of not composting if we are in doubt. But me, my husband Dave, and AJ Kanakry, who you'll see is your lead composter on Sunday. Dave and I will be there on Saturday of the Labor Day Food Festival. You can ask us, is this compostable? Is this not compostable? And we'll just make that if you are in doubt. Do all things well, like our Lord. Compact, stack the paper products as much as you can. Take care of those liquids in the sink. And then we talked about black soldier fly larva composting in particular. So if you have any other questions aside from those that I hope I've already answered in this talk, please reach out to me and Dave at daveandnikki@gmail.com is our email, and that's our number. And we are very happy to answer any of your questions. And thank you again for being our volunteer composters, recyclers, and trash people for this food festival. God bless you.